Alright, today we're going to be changing the spark plugs on this 3.7 liter V6. This is a Jeep Cherokee. You want to make sure that the engine is cooled down before working on it. You never want to do this on a really hot engine. It's okay if the engine's just a little bit warm, but you don't want to burn yourself and you don't want to mess up the cylinder heads. So we're going to go ahead first and we're going to take off this band here and just get this air intake tube out of the way. On the side of the intake here, we're going to disconnect this sensor. Just pinch and remove. Next, we're going to get this intake out of the way, and so up top we're just going to undo this screw so that it can pop off. And then we also have some Torx right here. So you'll need one of those Torx bits in order to get onto that. So this is a T30 Torx. Now you can just pull this intake piece out of the way. Next we'll remove this 10mm bolt here that holds the oil dipstick tube in place. And so that'll just give us a little more room here to work. Next, for each cylinder you'll come and find your coil on plug or your coil pack. And we're going to disconnect all these, so you just push down here and slide the harness off. Then you take off the 10mm nut and then pull the coil pack all the way out. Now when removing this last coil pack on the passenger side, it helps if you have one of these U-joint sockets that allows it to bend and then an extension to get back in there. It is kind of a tight fit. Next, we're going to take our 5/8" spark plug socket, and what's important about this is it has the rubber down inside here, and that's going to help hold the spark plug in place and also protect it from breaking. And so we're just going to go ahead and put this right down into that cylinder head right there where we can now get on it. So we're going to turn this counterclockwise, so that's this way, in order to unscrew this out. So next you want to compare your new spark plug to your old one, and sometimes they're a little bit different, but we're looking here at the threads and where they meet up, and everything looks good here. And so the next step, we're going to put some of this anti-seize on the threads here. And so we're just going to lightly spread it across the threads, and then when we screw it back in, that'll help it from seizing up. Next, we're going to put some anti-seize on this, and you really only need to put some of it towards the top of the plug, just a dab of it, and as it screws its way in, it'll spread it throughout the cylinder head. But just put a dab of that on there, and just make sure you do not get it on the top electrode or the ground strap. Just keep it away from the very top of the plug. Okay, so we very carefully dropped this down into the cylinder head. Okay, so we put it down nice and flush so it's flat, and we're just turning it by hand to make sure that it's threading properly. If it's very stiff to turn, then you could be cross-threading it, so you want to take it out. We're going to put it straight on here and just twist it until it goes pretty much all the way in. Now to torque these down, it's a very light rating. Usually it's about 15 to 20 foot-pounds, and a lot of times that doesn't even really show up on a torque wrench, so you just want to get it snug and just make sure that they're in pretty tight, but don't over tighten them. So that's what our new plug looks like installed. Then just put your coil pack back through here and make sure that it goes over that stud. And then your 10mm nut tightens back down on. Then just plug your coil pack back in and repeat that process all the way around. Now in order to get to the back spark plug, it is a tight fit here. So I had a smaller extension here that works really well. You may have to get some different sizes extensions to make that back one work on the driver's side. Now on the passenger side, the middle plug back, so you may have to rig up something like this as well with some extensions and a U-joint, and then another extension going straight down in it. and we're just pulling this oil dipstick tube bracket that we undid with that 10mm bolt away, and just kind of getting it out of the way. So I'd recommend breaking it loose with this, but then doing the rest of it by hand, both removing and reinstalling it until you need the socket wrench again to tighten it down. So for this back plug, it really helps to have this smaller extension that can fit down in there but still get down onto the spark plug. So anyway, it's just a smaller one. You may want different sizes of these extensions. You just want to go through now and check all of these coil packs, make sure that they're plugged back in, that you have that 10mm nut back on all of them. And so next we'll put that intake back in place. Okay, and then just remember to reattach your 10mm dipstick tube bracket bolt that we took out. Okay, so we just put this intake back underneath here and made sure that this throttle body adapter was going on all the way around on the outside. So we'll just tighten this back down and then tighten down our T30 Torx there on each side. Okay, we're going to go ahead and plug this sensor back in now and reconnect our intake tube here. And then we'll tighten this down. Now if you got a check engine light during this process, you can take your 10mm socket, remove the negative terminal here on the battery, just pop it off. Then if you honk on the horn, that should also help drain the electrical system. But let the car sit for 5 to 10 minutes and then put it back on, and it should clear the check engine light. And it did work on this one for doing that.